Thank you for joining me for another episode of You Are the One You Seek. And today I am super honored and super thrilled to be here with a very special guest. You've heard me talk about her a little bit recently, Pauline Edward. Pauline, welcome to the program. Do I call it a program?
The chat.
Welcome to the chat. How are you doing?
You know what? I gotta say this. When I hear young people like you, because you're a young people, working on this kind of material today, it brings me to tears because I was searching, I don't know, over 60 years ago. I had questions, and from prior lives, I had questions that weren't answered from my monastic experience and stuff. And in this life, since I was little, like I share in the book, I used to float out and look for God. So all I had back then was traditional books. My hero was Thomas Merton, a Cistercian monk. And when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a Cistercian monk, and I was told I couldn't because I was a woman. So I kept having the female side bashed throughout my early Catholic upbringing. I didn't have the information that you guys have today. So now when I see you guys and I look back at me, I get to, on the one hand, have hope because you guys are coming in and you have all these channelings, the Jesuit channelings, there's Judith Coates, there's so many right now. You have the information that I was looking for 60 years ago. At the same time, well, you guys give me hope. I can look back and love that child in me who wanted so much to have these answers and who went through life looking and not finding. But in the last few years, we have it and you have it. So you guys are getting a different start from what I had. That for me that's big for me.
Yeah. Well, I obviously have the luxury of that perspective now where I don't have to think about what it would have been like to not have those things. So I'm incredibly grateful to live in a time where, yeah, that is the internet has absolutely given us so much access to both
Yep.
really enlivening things and also incredibly destructive things. And it's always about choice, right? What do we choose to
Yep.
ingest? But I want to get into a little more of your upbringing, kind of a little more of that process of what you had to struggle up against with the only messaging that was basically available to you at the time.
I think a large part of it was in order to be able to understand people. I understand now that our experiences, we chose our experience. I had a thing flash. I don't think it's a dream. I don't know what it was. In the middle of one night where I remembered saying very clearly, okay, I'll go back one more time. So there was an edge to it, to coming back on Earth. And being raised here in Quebec in French Catholic environment, which is not like, in the States and the rest of Canada, which is Protestant, it's a little bit more open. The French Catholic background and how the French populated, Quebec with the prisoners and they sent the prostitutes and the rest of it, not a very nice background. But I got to experience that probably because it was very intense and hard. And me, I'm basically an impatient person. I want to get to the bottom line. I want the answer. So I kind of like needed that to squeeze me out, to squeeze me forward, to keep me pushing and looking for answers. But at the same time, those experiences allowed me to know what it's like to feel the grief, to feel the loss, to feel the depression, to be suicidal. I've I've pretty well done it all in my life. So when I worked with clients, I don't know how many thousand consults I've done, and I'm kind of like retiring now, kind of like saying I'm retiring. People laugh at me. But that allowed me to work with people in all walks of life. And being a Leo like you, I was able to come up with creative ways to communicate information. This is what Leo does, right? Communicates in a dramatic way, fun way, whatever way is needed. And so I got to appreciate my difficult background for what it gave me and allowed me to. If I'd been raised like a queen somewhere, I wouldn't have had the compassion I have today. So in some ways, we got to look at what we have experienced, what it made us feel, and then, yeah, I can feel them. I know that guy on the bus, he's suffering. That little baby on the bus yesterday that was crying, I just like showered her with love. And then she was asleep because I talked to her spirit and I said, it's going to be all right. You're brave coming to earth at this time. And then she was like in her little stroller. So when you experience it, I learned to not put down our pain and our suffering because it makes us relatable and we know from experience. And that's key in the age of Aquarius.
Yeah, it does seem like more we have contrast of the things we really don't prefer to experience, it just gives us more of a focal point to what we do prefer, and we can. It's a lot harder to, I guess, to move strongly towards that thing unless we do experience something that is kind of shoving you in that direction. Or, um, I think, as Yeshua said in the channelings, that sometimes life violently provokes us to get onto our path if we've been just if it's the signs have been showing up over and over and we just keep ignoring them. As occasionally you get that shove, into the water, and you're like, wait, I can't swim. But yeah, I think it's easy to feel victimized, but I love that you're able to see the benefit of that kind of that contrast and that negativity. Um, Go ahead.
One thing I learned from that was key to a major lesson that I learned when I was 58. Better late than never. To love the soul that you are, and I call them, the adventurous souls in my book, who got lost along the way, um, who came to have this adventure and live these challenging or difficult things. To love that soul who chose to have these challenging experiences so that they can grow and then serve and help others. How can you love them less? I mean, there's only infinite love for yourself. And we were not taught love when I was young because to like yourself is arrogant. It's a sin. Pride is a sin. So it took me till the age of 58 when I had a moment, I loved myself because I was reading one of my books and helping the translator work on it. And then I said, I've never had that. I love my daughters. Imagine the message I taught my daughters. I love my daughters to death, but I don't love me. So I asked a bunch of clients, and only one person, no one had truly loved themselves. And we hear a lot about self-love today. That's why the book starts there. It's the first step. And you got to love yourself for the work that you're doing. And sometimes it's challenging because we're going through a shift. We're going towards something new, something different that has not been experienced before. I think that was in your channel that you're reading today from on your podcast on YouTube, I think. We're going to a completely new, different place. So you got to love yourself for being a pioneer, for being so brave. When's the last time you felt that for yourself? That's the question we need to ask ourselves every day.
Yeah, I don't know if you have come across any of or what you think about it, and you're free to share your opinion. But I've recently come across the Bashar channelings through Daryl Anka, and Bashar is basically it's an Arabic word that means messenger. This being says there are no names where I am. It's just that's the best to make it make sense for you as a human. But he was basically saying that we have to again we have to experience what we don't want to see what we actually do want. And oh gosh, I already forgot the exact thing he was saying. There's so much. The problem is I've been drinking from the fire hose lately, so I've been taking in so many channelings and so much information that it's starting to kind of run together, and I think I need to take a break. So I'll have to think again about what it was that I was trying to reference there from Bashar. So my apologies for going way off the rails there. But it's been interesting to to have more confirmation of the same themes that are in the Yeshua channelings, that are in the Law of One material, that's in are in your books. And it does feel like there is starting to become this, you know, synchronicity and a more coherent message. Um, I want to kind of go back though to like where was the point where you were starting to experience maybe something that urged you towards there's more beyond this patriarchal set of rules and regulations and this one path to God, and all the kinds of things that shaped your upbringing.
I, I was 5 years old. I used to float up, and when I was 8 years old, I come home from church and go lie down and float out to the edge of the universe and wait to meet God. Yeah, I was very young. That's why I read all these. I read all the lives of the nuns and the saints and the priests and the this that I could find. I only read the books with the imprimatur stamp from the Catholic Church because everything else was evil, right? They were so dark. Nobody had the answers. Nobody had the love. Nobody had the joy. It was painful. They had to flagellate, you had to suffer. And I didn't like that, so I kept searching. So basically, I've been searching pretty much all my life. There was a middle part of my life where I was busy I got married and I had kids, and then I was a single mom. So I was a little bit more focused on that and with my clients, serving my clients. Um, but for the most part, it's been a lifelong journey. I can't say there's a specific thing. All I can say is, however, in the last year or so, when I was writing that last book, I had some pretty unusual experiences where finally, my future self, there's the parallel world, and that was in through by listening to music. I was not expecting these kinds of experiences. Now, there's one thing I want to say, that whether it's Bashar or Judith Coates channeling or Daniel's, I had asked, how come I'm not a channeler? And I was told very clearly, they don't want me to channel. They want me to step up and go up to their level, join my higher self. Okay, that's a job. I'm going to climb that ladder and stay up there. Now, another point is that everybody's journey is unique. Everyone, every soul, every expression of source is unique. So that has to be respected. Doesn't matter what they're doing. If they're an athlete or a politician or a chef in the kitchen, it doesn't matter. Everyone's journey is unique and everyone's journey is valid for that one. We really don't know about another person. We don't. So we got to love them. That's our job here.
You can
Now,
curse on my podcast; it's okay.
I'm allowed. Okay.
Doesn't bother
But
me.
if there's one thing that, despite that I was searching throughout my life, I started to get answers really in the last couple of years. When I did one major thing was change the language. That was major. Probably the biggest step ever. I had to wipe out the old God, the traditional biblical God and all that Bible stuff that I'd been programmed with. I had to wipe that out, and I had to go and what is it? Where we come? So then I got pure life, and then I replaced the Holy Trinity, which was all male. God the Father, His Son, and that Holy Ghost. They're all men. Everything in the Catholic Church is to keep women down. So when I changed the language, all of a sudden that was like boom. And then, as I share in the book, one day I was, this is last summer, I think, I was walking down the street, and when I go for a walk alone, I do this pure life, pure love, pure light, or now I can say God life, God love. I say that all the time, God light. And then I said, well, who created God? Who created pure life? And that's when, like, I'm walking down the street, and it's a nice day, and then I see these hands come up, like, I don't know, like in a cloud or something, and a smile, and these loving eyes came in front, and then it steps back. Who created God? It steps back. It's like impossible for us to understand it. It's beyond creation. There's no beginning. And it was smiling at me, and those arms were so loving. And so I remember that when I need to reconnect with source, God, pure life, call it whatever you want. Um, so if you're asking when did there was a turnaround, although all my life I was looking for answers when I had those experiences. Now that's very much my background in astrology gives me kind of like a backdrop for this, and probably my moon and ascendant in Aquarius doesn't hurt. I understand the current climate as we're moving into Aquarius, and it's really about firsthand experience. Now, since each person's journey is unique, it's up to each person to have their experience. That was my experience. It's up to each person to have their own. And when you have the experience, then you know. So it's not blind faith as it was throughout the age of Pisces. People would just accept anything. I had one mailman the other day spewing out all this Christian mumbo jumbo downstairs in the mailbox because he was really excited. I had a little chat with him. I like to play dumb with people. I play the dumb card and I get him chatting. And then he opens up and he spews out all this Christian blah, 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 and Christ came to save us and blah, 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 blah. That's blind faith. You're just spewing out words. Where's your experience? Because at the same time, he'll turn around and trash people who don't believe this. So that's not the truth. Pure life is all-inclusive. It loves everything. It doesn't judge. There can be no battle. What I saw was there cannot be any fight or battle or competition in pure life, or else it would have destroyed itself. So it's made of respect and harmony, beauty, balance, and love and compassion. So that's what we're going towards here. I kind of like rambled off here. Sorry.
No, that's great. That's what I want you to do. It saves me from forgetting about what question I was asking mid-question. Yeah, I mean, with that's one of those ones that I think I'm going to be battling against with friends and family for as long as I'm involved with this is, how can these messages coincide with my message, which is that there's only one way to salvation, and anything that claims to be God or claims to be Jesus that doesn't originate from the scriptural interpretation is Satan, is deception, is some sort of manipulation. Like, how do you even have that conversation with somebody to try and explain, well, it all comes from the same place, and it's darkness is a choice that we can create to experience, but it's not a permanent state of separation. Like, how would you have that conversation? Maybe if you stopped playing dumb with the mailman and launched into it.
Very simple. You don't. Why would you? I don't want to be right. I don't want to be right. I want to love. And if that mailman wants to go out and spew, I'm going to surround him with so much love that maybe one day his need to be right will start to crumble a little bit and he'll feel a need to love. It's not my job to change people. I've learned that. I'm not going to argue with anyone because throughout my life, I had no friends. In high school, I had no friends because I was so out there. I was weird, weird, weird. Nobody talked to me. I got bashed. I was even refused to give, somebody turned me away. I wanted to give them a fundraiser workshop on numerology in the New Year's. And I was turned away because there were whatever evangelicals or whatever, and I'm doing the work of the devil. And, I've been turned away so many times and cut off. I don't bother anymore. Why? That's not my job. My job is to love them. Every soul that is here on earth now, every adventurous soul that got lost in the forest and forgot their home, forgot their source. This is what we are all experiencing here now. Everyone, every single soul is in need of one thing. And you have that. That's all they need. I don't like complications. I lived with a shaman for years. I was at this group called the Initiates. I've been through them all the systems. And some of them are pretty nasty. I mean, they're not very, I gotta say, they're not very spiritual. When somebody wants to read the book, they'll read the book, but I'm not gonna say it here.
Yeah,
Not
you've told me before about some of those
Yeah.
experiences. Yeah, pretty icky.
Mm. So I've been through all of those, but I had to go through all of those because it didn't feel right. It wasn't the right answer, so I would leave it. One story that I share in the book is I, a past life. I was curious about. Oh, I want to share that one, the soldier one.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why I was listening to blues when I was a kid. I was a French Canadian Catholic girl in Quebec. Why am I listening to blues? I wasn't into pop music. My dad played flamenco on the guitar. My younger brother, who's a composer now, was playing Chopin on the piano. But me, I fell for the blues. Love jazz, blues, and I love the classics, love classical, but somehow blues. And then while I was processing stuff, I had some flashes of when I was in a past life. I was an African American man from a poor family. And I was offered an opportunity by the government to make some money, feed my family, and make my country proud. And so I said, okay. And then I found myself, it was difficult,
Take your
in
time.
Europe. I found myself in Europe and I was facing the choice of pulling the trigger and killing another person. You know, thou shalt not kill. You're going to disobey God. Or are you going to make your country proud? What are you going to do? Going to feed your family? So that soul dropped the gun and bailed. Now, I had another hint later that I think this was like in Eastern Europe, Western Europe. Maybe I got some help from a Spaniard. That maybe that's why my dad was playing flamenco. I don't know. I really don't. I have the details. But then I asked my guides, I said, like, it's like, that's why I bailed throughout my life. I just kept quitting everything. But then they explained to me it was helpful in this life because it got me to go forward and quit and move forward, quit and move forward, keep going, keep going, keep going. And here you guys are today. You got it all. But I had to quit everything and quit everything and quit and try everything to get to that where you guys are now. You're getting it. You have no idea how lucky you are to have all these teachings, all these channelings available through the internet, through YouTube, through books, audiobooks. I didn't have that. I had to read books that I got at the diocesan book room, stamped by the church. And they did not give me the answers. You guys have that. So the idea of quitting and moving forward, again, that came from that past life experience. I still like blues and I still want to go back to my piano lessons and still learn some more blues. But that's just another part of the experience of being in the human body, right?
Yeah, and that's cool that we've been able to share that recently. That I was able to talk to you about the recent past life experience I had with Pamela channeling Yeshua just for a few minutes for me, and he explained that I asked just point blank, did I know you when you were on Earth? And he said, huh, let me think. You know, he was kind of taking a minute, and then he said, you were in a military unit, and you had heard about my message, and you were drawn to it, and you traveled a long way across the Middle East, and you came and you heard me speak. You could barely even hear me. You were so far away, and it was such a crowded, chaotic scene. But that just a little bit that I heard, like, opened up my heart, and suddenly I was no longer willing to kill anyone for whatever military or I was in, and how I was just changed by this message, and like that resonated so much with me because that's been so much of my journey in this life. Is like I've done a lot of things that I didn't want to do, but I had to experience those things to understand what I did want to do. but I also can relate so much to this person who, when forced into the things that society says that's the right way to do it, there's going to be that echo, which Yeshua was telling me is because of my history as a light worker soul. I'm familiar with his energy from the astral plane, the soul realm, whatever, and that's what keeps drawing me back. That I have all these lives where I choose difficulties. In one past life, apparently I was a 14-year-old boy, German immigrant, when I hung myself from some very
Oh,
difficult circumstances, and I've had suicidal ideation most of this life, and just hearing that
yeah,
really crystallized.
yeah.
So I'm wondering, what do you think about, how do we, if we're not aware of our past lives and some of the traumas that they've caused, how do we still find ways to heal from that?
I think regarding past lives, again, it's not about making a religion or a system out of it, or, a metaphysical complex process out of it for which you got to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to some expert. I think from my experience, eh, eh, whatever I needed to see to help me release would come to the surface. I've seen others, and through music, oddly, I saw my future self, and then I was explained, that was very weird. Or when I was getting impatient about things not changing on the planet, I was shown. It's very hard to explain in words. In a dimension that's parallel to ours on a timeline that is not bound to the linear timeline that we're bound to. What I'm starting to understand lately is that now when I go on this other space here, weird stuff comes down, but um, we're not 3D, we're not linear, we're not physical. And as we start to go through that, um, accept the idea that we are not just bodies, then you start to have experiences. And sometimes a past life trauma will rise to the surface. The key is always love that soul that may have committed suicide, the one that took the gun and shot the other. Well, the other wanted to be shot. They chose that. We all choose our experiences, so there's no need to feel guilty. What we can do is learn. Well, that didn't make me feel good. I don't think it made that one feel good. Let's not do that again. Let's rise above. Let's try something else. Let's try forgiveness. Let's try harmony. Let's try respect. Let's try balance. Let's try love, which are all the attributes of pure life, or God. Call it, if God works for you. If you can say the word God and not see a man in a white robe who's got some stick that he's going to beat you up because you sinned, that's okay. But if you say the word God and all of a sudden, change the word. That is not the source of life.
Yeah, I love that you did that in the book, made a point of redefining, like you said a few minutes ago, redefining the terminologies and not feeling like you had to place it all in the court of the masculine and he, and all the patriarchal
Yeah.
um, messaging that was from the era of Pisces, which you talk about in the book, is a critical part of the era of changing from Pisces to Aquarius, is knowing and no longer capitulating power. So maybe could you speak a little more about like the astrological implications of these time periods?
Yeah, I heard, I don't know if it was in your thing today or somebody else's that I was listening to. When I putter around the kitchen, I'm always listening to, I go and check on YouTube and see the ones that I'm following, who's speaking today, and I'll just play it. That's my fun thing to do. And so somebody was mentioning about, oh, you were mentioning about the male and the female energies in the books by Pamela. And astrologically, we had, in the era of Taurus, which is 4 to 6,000 years before, Taurus is 100% feminine. And apparently, there was a time, from what I've read, where women were treating men like dogs. And it's very likely in that era. Next, we had the era of Aries, 2 to 4,000, 100% yang. Aries and Taurus are the first two signs. Aries is 100% yang, Taurus is 100% yin, female. So in that yang energy, in that Aries era, we had male dominated everything. You had competition, you had the Olympics, you had religions that were all about a male god. Everything male came out there. War, tons of war. When I was reading the timetables of history there for my previous book, and I was horrified. I mean, I did a lot of crying. I was horrified how much murder and killing and war there is. There has been throughout the history of humanity. It's just horrible. But that male energy, that was in the era of Aries. Now, here's one, I'm going to mention this because I've never heard anybody mention this. When they talk about the age of Aquarius, it's the golden age, and it's the age of, violet this and that and whatever, all sorts of fancy names for the age of Aquarius. I have never heard anyone mention the fact that this cycle, okay, before Taurus, you had 6 to 8,000 years ago, it was the age of Gemini, which is more like the hunter-gatherer. And then you had the Taurus era, you had empresses and goddesses and all that stuff. Then you have Aries. They're about 2,100 years, 2,000 years, these eras, okay? And it's a 24,000 year cycle. I have never heard anybody observe the fact that Taurus to Aries, the second and the first, and then you go to Pisces and Aquarius. So the way I mapped it out in my previous book is like a ladder going down. And when we went from Aries 2,000 years ago, when Joshua came to bring the message, we went to Pisces, the top of a ladder, and we're going down. I woke up one night, I freaked out. We're going backwards. I freaked out. And I've been doing astrology for, I don't know, I started astrology 55 years ago. It never really occurred to me, this cycle of the eras. What I came to understand, though, so now we're going from Pisces to Aquarius, and we're between the two. Aquarius is not locked in yet. When Jeshua came, Pisces wasn't locked in yet. He came to teach about forgiveness and love, respect, equality. He came to give us the essential attributes of pure life. But it was in a very male-dominated era. He was just leaving. And so they brought that in and they put it into the energy of Pisces. And Pisces is the last sign. Aries is the first. Aries is yang. Pisces is the last sign. Go to the top of a ladder. The most complex sign. It's a mutable sign. Complex. And water. Drama, drama, drama. There's not more dramatic than, just look at Shakespearean plays. Drama, drama, look at the movies. Listen to the music of the movies. Everything is drama, 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 drama. I wrote in one of my books, peace is boring, saith the ego. The small self, right?
Yep.
So we went from Aries, totally male dominated. We bring that male domination to Pisces and bring that in, complex systems and structures and ways of controlling and manipulating with the drama, the sin, the guilt, the fear, all the emotions, because humanity brought in its low consciousness. If it had brought in its high consciousness that Jeshua is teaching about love, forgiveness, equality, that would have been a different experience the last 2,000 years. So we're stepping it down. And there's something that I saw about all this later. And I'll give it at the end. Now we're going down one. So we're going from a huge bucket, Pisces, capable of all this drama and all these control measures, all these hierarchies, all this stuff, big, 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 that humans have been experiencing. Now we're going into Aquarius. It's a fixed sign, like Leo. It's an air sign. It wants to know. I want tangible proof. Show me the proof. I want to see how it works. No more BS. No more blind faith. It's got to work, and I got to feel it right, and it's got to make sense, and it's got to be logical. That's where we're going. Pisces into Aquarius. We're going down a step. So I was still very disturbed by that. We're still going backwards. We're not going to make it. If we don't take the messages that we're being given through all these channels and all these books, like the same thing that Jeshua gave, and probably others at the time, but I'm only familiar with Jeshua 2,000 years ago. And there was no internet. There was no way of getting, he's riding a camel. He's not on the internet. So no way to get the message across. But today, we're at this place to get the message across. Now, if we didn't have that, where would we be going in Aquarius? 1984. George Orwell's 1984, where technology takes over, robots take over. That's the lowest consciousness possible, where people totally buy into the science, and science is the new religion. That's low consciousness Aquarius. Now, we're getting these teachings because they got a lot of these souls are saying, yeah, but it can't be right. It can't be right. And so we have all these teachings, and they're questioning, and they're going to have to do a lot of work on themselves, and for the next couple of generations, do the work so we don't fall down. Why is this cycle a backwards one? That really disturbed me. Why are we going backwards all the time? Well, like I described the story of the adventurous souls who ran away from source, and decided to make up a world independent from source, and got lost in the forest and played their games and forgot that they're part of that oneness of creation. So it's really a made-up experience, a made-up world that we're experiencing, as long as we think that we're independent from source, the oneness, from God. This is what we're living. The reason why it's a backward cycle is that there comes a point where that pull away from God, from source, from unity, from love, from compassion, from oneness, is so painful. It's like an elastic band. From Taurus to Aries to Pisces to boom. There's no need for that backward cycles. So that whole 12-year cycle, that whole zodiacal cycle, poof, fades, and something else comes in. That's why I'm not a fan of all these predictions and prophecies about this date, and that. That's linear. And so then when I was shown that, yes, not to worry, because I was getting, we're a little worried about the whole thing, oh my God, we won't make it. But then I saw, it's really hard to put in words, but it's being created. And we live beyond the 3D physical dimension, and we are manifesting it right now, parallel to here, and people are living in, it's beautiful, harmony, respect for each other, respect for the planet. It's beautiful, and it's happening, but it's parallel to here. And that's why people are making prognostications about this date, that date, whatever. Forget it. I don't know. I went a little bit off here with
No, that's
it's difficult to explain in words some of these things.
understandably so. Yeah. Well, and part of what I was going to ask earlier that I got crossed up about with the whole Bashar thing was he talks about how we shift our timelines and we shift to parallel versions of the Earth. He said billions of times a second. Now I can't wrap my head around that, but the idea is that what we focus on, that's the world that we are generating for ourselves and that we're going to experience. I guess my question is, how does that tie in with the karmic cycles and with the astrological energetic implications? Like, do we finally move to a place where we're beyond the pull of the cosmos and we surpass karma and we're now just in this dharmic state of unity?
We've done it already. It's there already for our experience, except we're tied to a linear timeline. So the idea is to release the linear timeline and trust that it is happening in this parallel way that's impossible to conceive of from the human perspective, which is very 3D. And also the idea of karma, it has a negative connotation. It's like, again, when I was cleaning up language for myself, I had to get rid of replace the word ego, because there's a tendency to bash the ego. I was a student of Course in Miracles. Course in Miracles was mind blowing. It was a big step for me. But then I found that a lot of people were dwelling on, oh, the ego, and blaming the ego. Well, that's not love. There was a problem there for me. So that's where I went to the story of the adventurous soul. Again, karma in Hindu philosophy, in their philosophy, if you were born of a certain class, you're destined to be poor and you can't be anything else. If you're not, if you're whatever, I don't remember the terms. If you're not in that class system, you're always going to be a slave. So they have a system which is very Pisces. Systems are Piscean. They have a system in place which I do not agree with. There should not be a hierarchy. Each being is equally divine. Each one is an expression of source. So that's another word that, for me, karma, you have this karmic debt. I prefer you bring in some past history that can help you learn and heal. I prefer it in that sense than karma or dharma, good and bad, because when you're doing the good and bad, you're in duality. And you know where the duality starts.
You tell
The
me.
adventurous souls, they ran off and wanted to do their own thing. Say, by God, we're going to do our own thing. The idea also of the term adventurous souls, it's funny because I talked about pure life, um, uh, pure light, pure love, and Greg Braden just put out a book called Pure Human or something like that. That's like, whoa, synchronicity here. But the idea of using the term adventurous soul for me made it a lot easier to see whoever's out there I'm walking by on the street, whatever they're doing. I can set aside their behavior and I can see an adventurous soul that lost their way and forgot that they're really an expression, a divine expression of God, life source, call it whatever you want. And that will never punish you, will only love you. So once you've made peace with God, then you can make peace with all those, doesn't matter who it is, politician, musician, business person, it doesn't matter who they are. They're all adventurous souls, kids, children of God who got lost. It makes it easier. So that if I get angry or judgmental, oh, that politician or that whoever, I'm paying the price because I'm not being from my heart. And I know what it feels like to be from my heart, like that little girl on the bus yesterday, I don't want to pay that price anymore. So whenever something like that comes up, you can call it karma or whatever, where I am reacting or I am not from my heart, then I can be grateful and say, oh, thank you, politician or whoever. You gave me an opportunity to see that I've chosen incorrectly again, and I can make a different choice now. You see? So then it doesn't matter what's going on out there. Doesn't matter what your family agrees with or not. If it puts you in fear mode, judgment mode, depression mode, whatever, be grateful because it's like, oh, wow, I didn't choose to be from my heart. This is great. Thank you. I love you. I got pissed off again. Oof. Yeah, I get to unload some. You want to call it karma? Call it karma. I know this is out there, but we got to be out there today.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's not
Do-
out there to me. Well, and I think Yeshua describes this pretty well in the channelings that through Pamela, where a full-grown flower isn't going to judge. I can't. I always quote it, but a full-grown flower is not going to misjudge a seedling because it's in that stage of its development. And if we can look at each other as flowers in various stages of development,
yeah,
we let go of the judgment and we just go, you're serving a function that is to help me maybe see what I prefer and don't prefer. Like you're talking about with politicians, like right now, I mean, I'm in the American South. I could have a lot of very strong feelings about the recent election and about certain people. And old me would have absolutely been going off right now, just going raging out, freaking out. And now I'm just like, this is a choice. I don't have to attach my energy to people who either don't serve me or don't represent what resonates with me, but I can learn from them, and I can also see them as a holy reflection of the divine all. And that takes all the judgment out and the need to, like, you know, I don't know, put them up against the firing squad or whatever. And I just love that, especially like, you've mentioned in your book. Just the focal point is seeing that divinity in everything and in everyone, and not creating those artificial boundaries that are pretty much the whole game of duality and separation.
Yep.
Thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, you talk about, the political situation. Somebody asked me the other day, astrologically, who was going to win? And I said, I am not a fan of making predictions because of that experience I had. I shared in the book with a client whose mother, I think they were from Vietnam. She had been told when she was young that she would die at 54. So that seed was sown. She's going to die at 54. Guess what? She died at 54. This is you got to be very careful when you're making predictions, especially in a culture that believes these predictors. So I said, I'm not making prediction. I'm letting humans, vote. But the night before the election, it was very weird. In the middle of the night, I heard a voice say, Trump won the election. I don't know if I was asleep. I guess I can't. I don't know what to call that. And I said, hey, the election's tomorrow. So then I was curious. The next day I got up and I'm watching the numbers go, and it's like, okay, but I got one good feeling at the end of the whole thing. And I know the world is not going to change overnight. It's not because, there's this equinox this or full moon that, and people get it all wrong. That's not the way it works. How it works is, what choices are we making? Now we're in a different season, a different kind of climate we're moving into. It's like when we go from winter to spring here in Canada, where you got snow in the winter and in the spring. Let's say go to fall into winter. Fall, it's kind of cool, and in winter it's cold. So I can make a pretty good prediction, say, well, it's going to be snow here on the ground in a few weeks, but I can't predict that you're going to go out and ski. Maybe you decided you're going to go south this year, even if you're an avid skier. I can't predict that. So that's the same thing with humans, where we're going, especially we're going down the ladder into Aquarius, where it's feeling very uncomfortable, and Aquarius is very much about comfort. But to say where we're going now, and based on the elections, there was one little thing that gave me a tiny ray of hope, is the idea that he had a majority. Trump had a majority. That means a larger group of people want to work together. And togetherness is very reflective of Aquarius. Divisiveness, hierarchies, separation, specialness, that's very Pisces. But community and togetherness is very Pisces. So it doesn't matter if they went all blue or red, whatever. I don't understand the system. But the thing is, they all went one way. That says that more people want to come together. Now, what they're going to do with that depends on where they're at. Obviously, depends on the level of consciousness. But there seems to be more, and with young people too. That's why I'm feeling hopeful. But it is going to take time. It's not one equinox or 1 year or one number, or just Pluto moving into Aquarius this month. It's not that alone. It's, what are people going to do? What are humans going to do? Are they going to put their guns down? Is that young generation finally going to say, no, Mr. President, you want to go and have a war? You take the gun. You go and do it. That's what I want. That's what I want. About the economy, about poverty, about the environment, things like that. They're so silly now with their green and blah, blah. And they're pushing how, I saw a post on Facebook, how they're promoting this company that recycles, that takes old appliances and blah, blah, blah. I went like, you got to be kidding me. People today are okay with a, I got to change my fridge, it's coming tomorrow, that lasts 8 years, and you're bragging about how you're going to recycle the parts instead of addressing the built-in obsolescence that, they taught Motors to do decades ago. Now everybody does. Young generation today, you think 7, 8 years is good for an appliance? You got to be kidding me. Go 40 years. And those phones and those devices, where's that going to be recycled? And all the material that it's made with and all that. So something needs to be learned and addressed there. So it's going to take time. It's going to take time. So when more and more people become aligned with that Pisces energy of harmony, respect, community, the world, the planet, the harmony, the community thing, maybe it'll expand to include the planet, not just my family, everybody together. We're seeing a little bit more of that now. I heard from somebody that in the Middle East there are groups that don't want to do that anymore. They want to come together, but it's going to take time, a few generations.
Do you think there is any possibility, though, of like, this is one that Bashar talks about a lot, is open contact with non-human intelligences that will give us some sort of like little nugget of understanding of how we fit into the galactic picture that will reframe our perspective so we stop thinking so small and so there isn't so much infighting. And he even went so far as to say they'll provide a holographic record of the entire history of Earth for us to browse. Like to me, that sounds incredible because I know we're moving towards understanding, but it seems almost like there needs to be some sort of more catalyzing definitive event that isn't so subjective to like, is this fake news or real news, or is this a truth or an opinion, like something that is irrefutable. Do you have any capacity to see something like that maybe unfolding?
There's one thing about Aquarius, and when it's going to be used correctly, it's first-hand experience. That's why they're having trouble with the media. That's why the media has been used to control people, control measures, hierarchies, and all that. It's Pisces. Aquarius is all about sovereignty. So there are more and more people turning inside and getting these insights. Look, nobody taught me what I experienced last year. I didn't learn that anywhere in a book. With music, I've never seen that anywhere. That's a personal experience for me. Other people will have their own experience. A lot of people have experiences in nature and things like that. They have visions, they have things. So yes, we will be experiencing more of these beings and these other dimensions. We have more of these visions as we are open to them. We have to become not indoctrinated. What's the opposite of not indoctrinated? We have to release the ancient indoctrination where we gave our power away. But in order to do that, we have to claim our higher self. That's in I think one of the last chapters of the book, is becoming complete. And I think that's a bit of a challenge at the beginning when you're in an aging physical body and you have these moments of experience where you're experiencing your non-physical self. The contrast is pretty big. And most humans on the planet are not quite ready for that yet because they're still indoctrinated. And humans in the separated state have needed some superiors or some who know to tell them what to do, how to do it, because they had no access to their own inner higher self. So becoming complete, that's another word, because I had to throw away a couple words like ascension, enlightened, because you keep hearing, oh, they're not enlightened. They don't know what's going on in the politics, Oh, gotta ascend to the next dimension. I'm not coming back down here on earth. It's horrible down here. Well, all these things are filled with judgment and hate. For me, that was not true enlightenment, not true ascension. So that's why I had to undo that language too. But that's me, because I've, been on this quest for a number of years and lifetimes. So I've had a lot of indoctrination through traditional teachings and language. So becoming complete is like when you re-plug into your plug it in to your higher self. So at that point, then you can communicate with those that are helping us. So you don't need to depend on anybody else. You will need to do this. We each individually need to do this. There is a law, and this is another experience that I had where I experienced a fair amount of distrust and inability to have faith in those helpers and angels, because there was an intervention that was supposed to occur, and I saw this in a dream, and it was canceled. There's a law of non-interference at work in pure life, because we have freedom. We have the power of the freedom of choice, and so they can't interfere. Now, if there are some who are interfering, they are not respecting the laws of pure life. Okay, so all those people that are in fear mode of those dark forces, let them have their fun. They're just they love their drama. You can just drop that and go back to what is pure life God really like. That's a leap for some people, because some people get a big kick out of having someone to blame. When you got
Right.
someone to blame, it's the dark forces, it's them, it's the elites, it's the this, it's the that. Then they believe they're off the hook. One of the most challenging aspects of this process of getting out of this whole thing cycle is to be accountable. If I'm a divine expression of source, I'm creative. I'm creating life. I'm contributing to the creation of life on earth. I want to make a different contribution. I don't want to maintain this. I'm going to stand up and claim it. So I can't blame anybody anymore. Right? That works well in Aquarius. For the ones who are going to do it, it works well. Of course, in Aquarius, the keywords are I know. There are those like, yeah, no, but it's not proven scientifically. Blah, blah, blah. I'll wait for science. I'm too impatient. I got a 14-5 life path. I'm not very patient. I'm too impatient to wait for science to prove. Although, Nassim Haramein in, what's his organization called? I think they're the International Space Federation now, I think. Quantum physics and that. They're doing amazing work. They're tying in the spirituality and the science. When
Mm-hmm.
I went to McGill in college, I was so naive. I signed up in physics because I thought that physics and metaphysics were related. That's how naive I was. If I was to come back today, that's what I would study. Oh, you mentioned something about people passing on in today's video. What I understood is, because I was wondering, why do they die? Why do we die at this certain age? My understanding is that some souls choose to leave when they do, so that they can be reborn, and then they'll be like 30 years old at the right time when they can contribute. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I in fact just lost a really really good friend who introduced my wife and I. She, 42, or she was 41, just a little bit younger than me, and she left behind a very young family, 3 children,
Mm,
and her and her husband very involved in the Christian church, and so they had that element. But I had heard also some other channelers talking about they were getting messages about there was kind of an exodus happening where people were leaving the planet now to kind of avoid maybe certain things they didn't want to be here for, but to come back
yeah.
kind of when things are starting to really hit their stride and humanity's put down their weapons and starting to embrace unity and peace. And I, you know, my sadness for her really just extends to her family and what they're having to deal with. But at the same time, I have to see all those things as experiences they chose to experience, while no one would logically choose to experience these things as a human being because they're painful.
Yeah.
We're not able to see the larger implication of what is this able to teach us and what is her experience going to be. And obviously she's fine. She's right now, she's, I kind of watching her service. It was pretty much a church service. It was, 2 hours long. There was a ton of music, a ton of worship songs, several different pastors preaching. And I could just kind of see her like up there, just kind of like, shaking her head a little bit like, oh man, I appreciate the effort guys, but not really even that close. They did do a fairly good job of kind of explaining her energy and her love that she put out there. Like she was one of the most non cookie cutter Christians you'd want to meet. She just had nothing but grace and love for anyone she came across. And so to me, she was a really great example of a person in my life. But yeah, it does seem like on the logical level, why would you choose to leave now? But we don't have access to currently to understanding fully what that is until we decide to let it go and have peace about a plan that we put together that makes a little more sense than the human brain can comprehend. But um, I don't know where I was going with that other than just sharing that personal story. But
She may reach out down to you and let you know why, if you want to know that. I understood why somebody was experiencing certain things and recently, and it's really backwards from what you would expect. Somebody who's receiving a lot of care. He's a cancer, and he's receiving a lot of care, and he came here to learn to be cared for. That's an interesting experience. Whatever it is that we're experiencing, you have to look at its value. It's like, everybody would freak out, the health issues, blah, blah, but he's learning to be cared for and he's appreciating it. We never know. And there's a lot of, I don't know if you've seen, I've watched a lot of videos of little kids born with mind-blowing musical talents and other skills, right? What I'm noticing, I don't know what percentage of the world population believes in reincarnation. I know it's in India and these countries, and I don't know about the Western cultures, how many people, but it's not in Catholic or even Christian teachings that there's reincarnation. But I read a lot of comments about people now where they're seeing these kids come here with a completely different consciousness and mind-blowing, inexplainable talents. And they're saying, oh my God, reincarnation is true. So just that is causing a certain number of people to have a different perspective. Now, if they're open to the idea of reincarnation, imagine how that will affect how they see their life, how they see other people's lives. So that's a little step. I see it that way.
yeah, I love that. I'm kind of with my own children. I'm kind of watching for indications of where their awareness is with that, because they seemed a little more. They I think because it's me, their dad, kind of trying to talk about these new ideas that are, for me, they're new because it's only been a couple years since I've journeyed out of atheism and gotten to this place where I've even entertained the idea of reincarnation or channelings or UFOs. Well, actually, no, the UFO thing I was pretty much always sold on being real, but um, it's definitely it's something that I've been able to kind of let go of so many of the expectations that used to be placed on your children for what they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to act and what career paths they're supposed to take. My wife and I both have felt really like y'all just need to find what resonates with you, because I have this trust that if they do that, if they really lean into what is resonant with them, they're going to land where they need to, versus someone telling them, here's the path, here's what you got to do. And I just am so excited to see what the future is going to hold for them. Like I keep trying to tell them, I know things look really scary right now. I know it looks like we're on the brink of nuclear war and a dissolution of society, but try and hold out hope, because that whole like darkest before dawn thing is really what I believe is we're in the middle of. And but it's hard to communicate that in a way that is comforting to a teenager who's trying to figure out who they are and also maybe a little freaked out by the world. But my hope is that energy, that, whatever indigo energy or whatever they say for this newer generation, that'll kind of take hold in their hearts, and that they will be able to, move past these things a lot quicker than previous generations who stayed stuck in the fear. But time will tell.
I had written a blog post on the idea of indigo children, and it was an interesting concept. But again, the problem with that is that humans being in a divided state, self versus other, because you're, separated from source, so everything is divisive in the human experience. Then there were the indigos, which are special, and everybody else is worthless. So that's another one where I kind of like scrap the language. All children need and deserve to be loved. Period.
Yeah.
Indigo, purple, black, yellow, pink, orange. Love them.
It's like you said earlier with the postman. It's not your job to save them, fix them. I mean, Yeshua said it clearly too. You're only here to save yourself, which for someone like me is really hard to hear, because in my heart, I want everyone to be okay. I want everyone to be saved. He even told me that in the channeling. He said, "You're a light worker soul, but you've tried." He laughed and said, "You've tried really hard to be an earth soul, and I know that you really want things to just be okay and everyone to be okay, and that's where so much of my pain comes from." But being able to put it into perspective, like you said, the person that you might have shot was choosing to be in that position to be shot. We choose to be the child crushed under the rubble in a horrible war. Like that seems really gross to say as a human. Like how dare you say that my child chose that? But it takes the sting out of it when we know that we're not truly victims, that we're just having this temporary. It's the same way you wouldn't just sit in a classroom and pontificate about skydiving and then go, you know what, I feel complete about skydiving. I think I don't need to do anything else. No, you didn't actually skydive. You want to go do it, right? It's the same
Mm.
thing with these experiences. It's one thing to sit in the astral realm and go, I wonder what it would like to be shot or killed or die of a disease over a long and difficult life. And just thinking about it wasn't good enough. We wanted to actually plunge into it and have the experience. So, well, that's at least how I try and keep the madness in check for myself. What were you about
Well,
to say?
if we want to change the world, and we don't want to just dress up the old, make it look good. We want a new experience, something that's never been done. We want to get rid of that ladder, and we want to shift to a completely new experience, which means we need to do things differently. So we can't fix or change anyone. We don't know what their life journey is. But what we can do, other than fix ourselves, show them how it's done. And I've noticed when I behave in these weird ways out there on the street, on the bus, or whatever, I noticed my 80-something-year-old neighbor, she'll do similar things now. And she has no idea what I do. Does not read any of my books, has no idea of my work, none whatsoever. But I'm noticing people are doing similar things. So that actually works. It's about your being. Be in a new way. And a new way is respectful, non-judgmental, forgiving, harmonious, loving, compassionate. That's being in a new way. That's not how beings have been. Oh no, my family's special, or this one's special, or that one, I'm going to do this for that one first. There's hierarchies everywhere. There's specialness everywhere. There's divisiveness, judgment. So we are contributing. We are It's like a stew. And we're all putting something in that giant stew of humanity. What are you putting in? That's the only thing that matters. You can't control what another person put in the stew. But you can put a different flavor in it. I mean, when I came to that conclusion, this like takes the weight off, because none of my family are into this. I mean, and none of the people that I know are into this. A very small number. I've been laughed at, scoffed at, judged, condemned, and I'm sure I've been hanged in past lives and, all the rest of it, But I can be a new human.
Well, and you're definitely helping pave that way with writing these books. And I want to kind of back up with that because how many books have you written to this point?
Oh, is it 10? Lots. There's a
Hey, if you
novel in
lost
there that's
count.
off. Yeah, yeah, like 10. I've been writing since I was, 13, 14. I still have my journals up there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You told me how nothing gets past you. Everything is triple backed up and under lock and key. So good job on that. I'm the guy who
Yeah.
writes a book and has it disappear on because I didn't plan ahead the storage. But um, th- that's my style. I'm a little fast and loose. It drives most people around me crazy, but as long as it makes sense to me, again, it's kind of hard to like let go of everyone else's
Are you
perspective.
recording? Do you get it in the middle of the night now and you got to record when you
I,
get
I
your
wish I
insights?
wish that when I woke up, I had a clear, like, my dreams are always such a they're consistently the same thing. It's some sort of like trip somewhere or big event with a bunch of people, and we're all trying to like either socialize or strategize about doing something. And I've had this now for
Hmm.
probably a year straight of just these dreams, and I'm learning now that dreams can just be like what we're actually experiencing in the dream could be way more complex, but that's just how my human brain is given the symbols to interpret what's happening. But it might be I'm having a meeting with councils of who knows other souls out there that were planning something, and I just have no clue how to process that as a human. But either way, I kind of wake up just like too disorienting for me to like even. So yeah, I know you told me to do that, like record everything when you wake up, and I don't know, I need to get on a better habit or something or routine where I can like, I don't know, wake up with a clearer mind because it just sort of turns into a weird soup of what was I doing in that dream? That was I don't okay, I have no idea. But
Sometimes just putting it down opens the door. That's the foundation. You'll get the next step. Put it down, get the next step. I can see a novel being turned into a movie there.
it's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. No, I need to do the basic stuff and the legwork. I get kind of dreamy and disconnected, and um, but I did want to ask you though about well, I haven't even shown it yet, but this book right here is it backwards on the screen? Oh man.
I'm seeing it forward. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm seeing it
okay,
right.
good. Hopefully, it's forward on the video. But Gateway
Yeah.
to a New World, your new book,
Yeah.
what which I was again very, very, very honored to write the forward for. So thank you
Thank you.
again for taking a chance on me doing that. I wanted
Yay,
to
young
ask.
people.
Hey, I say yay you, yay all of us. But what would be if there was like one concept from this book that you would want to be the focal point for anyone reading it or for anyone curious in reading it? What do you think would be kind of like, and maybe that's too narrow, but is there sort of one specific thing? And then I'll tell you what mine is afterwards. But
The first one is taking that first step in loving yourself. That's not been done by humans, for real. It's not. That feeling, that feeling you have when you hug your baby, your cat, your dog, your horse, call it whatever you want. Humans do not do that for themselves. It's the first step. The next one for me was cleaning up the language. That's the biggest step for me, cleaning up the language. And then accepting that we're more than a physical body and exploring that connection and plugging in with that higher self and then listening and trusting. Um, Now you're asking me my steps, but I said before, our journeys are all unique.
right,
So my steps will fit for me, but other people have their own steps. So those were the big steps for me: the language and love, loving myself. I was listening to your podcast from today, and I had tears in my eyes. I'm thinking, you guys have all this now, and what I went through when I was young, the courage that young girl had. And okay, she wanted to commit suicide, and the only good thing from her Catholic upbringing was she believed that if she committed suicide, that would be a mortal sin and she would be punished. That was the only good thing from my Catholic upbringing. but she stuck it out. That's loving. And I was listening to your thing and I was going back and loving myself for all the things I did in my youth. We have to do that. We have to be able to do that. A lot of people carry baggage and then they associate their physical ailments with emotions. It's very, we know it's called this and it's that and it's because of that. No, just go inside. Just open your heart. That's the biggest thing. Biggest thing. Try it. Go on the bus and love whoever's in pain. You'll see. Next thing you know, they're smiling. Baby's crying. Next thing you know, they're sleeping. Yeah, I've had people hug me on the street. Little 2-year-old came running and hugged my legs once. It was really funny. Another guy had a chat with a fellow on the street. Oh, I have to hug you. Another neighbor is like, who's going to turn away real, pure love, which comes from pure life? Not human love. Human love is conditional. Oh, yeah, I love him because, he gave me this for my birthday. No, that pure, unconditional love. It just feels so good. That's why I love to go to the island behind my condo there almost every day when I can, and I feed the squirrels, and now they all come and eat out of my hand now. They look up at me, and they're waiting for that peanut, I don't know who's having more fun, me or them. I think it's me.
Well, it
And I
sounds like
now
you're
now I
radiating
got my
it.
neighbors doing it. Now I got my neighbors doing it. And we have those little half hour where we're just knowing, quiet, and love. Yeah. Radiating it, being it. You were asking how you change the world. You can't change people now. Play the dumb card and love them. Then you're off the hook. And then pay attention to your reaction. You ask for what's the keys here. The other one is, oof, that triggered this in me. Oh yeah, I know. I still have resentment against blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm going to love that soul. I'm going to be grateful for that experience. I understood gratitude that way. Not thank you. Oh, you gave me $10. You screamed at me and made me angry. Thank you. I learned I still have anger in me. Who does that? Right? It's almost like doing everything backwards. Loving for no reason. Being grateful for stuff that should make you angry. It's weird, eh?
It's hard to undo that programming.
Do we want a new world or do we want the same old, same old? We want a new world. We've got to do things differently, right? We got to get out of that ladder going down. It's all very nice. There's nice attributes to Aquarius, and people are going to wallow in them for a while. Well, like I said, it's like 1984 here. If you can't go with your heart, and that's one thing that's good about Aquarius, because Aquarius is about feeling, whereas Pisces is water. It's more about the emotion, the drama. And so Aquarius is more sensitive. That doesn't feel good. I don't like that. It doesn't feel good. Remember in the James Brown movie, Get On Up? I don't know if I mentioned in this book or the other book. I think it's in the book before. There's this movie, Get On Up. It's a life of James Brown. I saw James Brown live in 1969.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah.
At his
Bada boom.
peak.
Oh, man. So in the movie, he's telling his musicians, who are trained musicians, and he was not really a trained musician, he's a singer. He sang, in the choir in church. So he's the boss of his band. He was a Taurus too, very fixed, so very much about feeling. So he's telling his musicians, playing the sax and the horns and the drums and, trained musicians. He's telling them how to play the music. He's basically instructing them on how to syncopate the rhythm. And they're saying, oh, we can't do that. That's not how we learn music, blah, 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 blah. So then he starts railing on them. Are you feeling it? And he's going on, God gave you ears and God, but are you feeling it? It's very Taurus, very fixed sign like Aquarius. Are you feeling it? Then they all clicked. and they all got together and played it and syncopated the rhythm just exactly. And he got that, James Brown rhythm syncopation thing, but he conveyed it through feeling. It's not what you learned in school. So that's one of the helpful keys. One of the keys that can be helpful in Aquarius. What am I feeling? And it's not the same as emotion. Does that feel right? Does it feel good? It's like when you're listening to a book or a transmission or channeling or whatever. How does it make you feel? Sometimes you have to, put up a boundary and say, okay, I had enough. Or you'll say, well, that can't be true. It doesn't have the attributes of pure life. There's judgment. There's not love there. There's not forgiveness there. So that's not for me. You got to go how you feel. So that's big too. And we're not taught to trust that. You're taught to trust, like you were saying before, the bosses, the people in authority, the gods, the this, the that, and whatever, the experts. Oh, I read a definition of experts about, I don't know, 50 years ago. You know what definition of expert is? There are a lot of experts in Aquarius, I know. Expert. Unknown, spurt, quantity. So now when I see somebody claiming to be an expert, unknown quantity, okay, have fun. Then I'll play dumb. And
I
play
love
the,
that. I mean, that's to me, you've captured the essence of what Yeshua talks about, what all these channelings are talking about, is not being stuck in your head and trying to, again, win somebody over with really incredible words and philosophy, or blind them with brilliance and baffle them with bullshit, or whatever, phrases go out there. You're living it, and you're saying how people in your life are copying you, even though they have no idea what you're about. And to me, that is a proof that you are, like you said, you wanted to channel, and you sound like your guys are saying, go one step higher. Your channeling is just a way to already have a dialogue with your higher self anyway. It's not about connecting to Yeshua or connecting to Mary or Ra or whoever. It's about them being a conduit to channel it all back to your higher self and your understanding. And to me, that's as simple as that. Like when I was asking you what was the most important part of the book, I agree wholeheartedly with you that it's all about love and forgiveness for yourself, number one, and then dispensing that outward, because you can't, and not even dispensing it, but just living it, because you can't, I don't think you can properly love and forgive anyone until you've done it for yourself. And at least I know for myself, that's been a true story of my life, is all the self-hatred, self-loathing for 37 plus years. It hollowed me out. It made me empty and angry. And when I actually tried to dare to do the cheesy, weird, gross thing of saying, David, I love you and I cherish you, like, it started to change things. Just even if I didn't believe it at first, and I felt like I was being, this is a weird deep cut, but Stuart Smalley on SNL, and you're good enough, you're strong enough, and or you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. But doing some form of self affirmation really did change my whole trajectory towards how I view myself. And to me, that's what you really touched on in a beautiful way in the book, is how very, like, only one person you came across really had kind of experienced a level of, oh yeah, I do love myself. And so that's an epidemic. I mean,
yeah,
it's a small sample size, but that is, if we look in the world, it's not that hard to deduce that's what's going on. Is we're all filled with these messages of, you got to help everyone else, you got to do for everyone else, you have to be plugged into this and plugged into that. No mention of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. So I think that is so critical to moving forward in this new era, is that understanding. And so thank you for being such an important messenger of that. I think that, you can't say that message enough. So I appreciate that. It was to me a kind of a central theme of the book, and a really important point.
I think one
And
point I want to make about the eras thing, we're not obligated to go down the ladder into Aquarius. And the point right now is where we're between two. Aquarius isn't locked in yet. That's an important point. That's why we're getting all this information. And it's the age of technology also, information age, it's an air sign. So we're getting all these channeled messages, and we're learning to communicate with, Joshua and them and all the ones that are helping us here. So it's not locked in yet. It's not solid. So that's what's important now more than ever. And it may seem confusing, but we have enough information in the teachings to tell us exactly where to go, where we need to go, where we can keep it simple. Feel it. Go with your heart. Go and get that new information that we need now to move forward, and then be an example of that out in the world. That's the thing. It's not locked in yet. That's why it's more important than ever to do the work right now. And then forget about Aquarius. Me and my moon in Aquarius, I'm saying, forget about Aquarius. We don't want to go down that ladder. And then maybe in the other dimension, there's a completely different structure there.
That
If a
is something
structure is
I've
needed.
heard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't really have that. I never had thought about that until I'd recently heard that we may move beyond needing to be subject to the conditions of the alignments that they are now and how they affect a third density physical body. And that's kind of what, because you're writing another book, and you told me the tentative title for it already, but it was kind of like the step beyond. This is Gateway to Inner World,
Beyond
and
the
that was
gateway.
Beyond the Gateway. Thank you. So
Yeah.
that's kind of more about what it looks like actually living in that new era, or maybe tell me a little bit about kind of where you're coming
It's
up
kind of
from
like
with that.
starting off. So, oh, we're at the gateway. We made it. Yay. No, we're just starting. That's kind of like, no, there's work to be done. Basically, that's what it is. So it's going to be looking at the challenges. Boundaries is one of the first subjects. There's good boundaries and bad boundaries. There's beliefs, systems, and structures. So I don't see any personal stories in this one for now, but they like it when I put personal stories in there. Don't forget, I had lived like a monk before, and I wanted to be a monk in this life. So for me to be like even here and sharing all these personal stories in my book, that's kind of like, So we'll see what comes through, but it's about how to navigate it. And again, without, um, like I said, I'm not a fan of specific predictions. I prefer the purity of source, pure life, pure love, pure light. And if we stick with the pure attributes, we can take it further. We don't want to predefine it. I guess that would be a word. Don't want to define it. Let's take it to let's take ourselves back to our purity and know everything we can experience. That's what we should be aiming for, not making a world from the current perspective, the 3D linear perspective that we have of what a world should be or supposed to be, or might be if it was a little better. Then we're going down the ladder. I know this is all weird, but we
No,
want
it
weird.
makes Yeah. Well, I mean, what I hear you saying is we have to, if we're truly embracing pure life, pure source essence, it really the details of what's happening around us kind of become a moot point, right? We're not meant to get hung up on when is the solar flash going to happen, when is there going to be this UFO event, when is there going to be, the great Earth rift or floodings that are, like all these certain things that I think a lot of people are kind of looking to as the catalytic event or something. What I hear you saying again is just that when you're living true to resonating with source, those things kind of fall away as so important, and you're just able to take it moment by moment, be in the now moment, not focused on past or past or future. And I love that.
The only
That's
reality is now.
that's been
If
the
you, if
biggest
you,
challenge for me.
if I'm thinking of, and that's what actually that's what got through me through my early years, and why I was never good at remembering stuff. I was looking ahead, and that's probably why I was studying astrology. I wanted to know that there was something better in the future, But ultimately, there's only now. If I'm looking elsewhere, I'm not now. So I'm not. I'm not. My two buddies that I connect with frequently are Joshua and Mary. I can't be with them if I'm thinking of da da da. If I'm thinking of some drama going on in the world, I'm watching the news and I'm getting sucked into whatever, I lose my connection with my higher self and with my buddies, my guides. I'm not now. And it's when I'm here now that I can capture the energy, the love, the light, the whatever it is that I need if I'm interacting, doing whatever I'm doing. Doesn't matter if I'm, sewing a jacket lining or whatever, and all of a sudden I get this brilliant idea, and then I say, "You guys are so smart," because I always get these fun solutions to fix problems. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's now, being now. Yeah,
it's a challenge. It's a challenge for all of us. But I'm so grateful you're again one of the growing number of clear voices who are sharing just the beautiful simplicity. You can have all the complex details of astrological information, but at the same time, you're really driving home the most simple message that we can have, which is the hardest one to embrace: self love and innate divinity, internal worth. So I couldn't be more thankful to have you out there, and thank you for coming on here and sharing details and stories from your life. I know that is a little scary when you're kind of not as used to be. You're not going around speaking on campuses and stuff. It probably feels a little jarring, but yeah, to me, I'm convinced we've known each other as souls and made a plan to do certain things in this life. And I think every meeting, every interaction we have is in some way planned out or
yeah.
understood ahead of time. And so there are no accidents or coincidences to me anymore. But and that being said, where can people find your books and more information about you? This is the time to sell yourself, Pauline. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Marketing is not my thing. I have a website,
Me either.
paulineedward.com, and my web host company demolished my slash in the kitchen blog. I had all my recipes there, but can't do
Oh
anything about
no.
that. Oh, yeah, shared my recipes, but um, and the books are available pretty much everywhere, Amazon and everywhere else, in print and um, EPUB, so digital formats.
You
So
still at
they're out there.
paulineedward.com? Is that still
Yeah,
going?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. That's still there. Yeah,
good deal.
I don't do much of that right now. There's only so much you can do at a computer, especially an old one like mine with Windows 7. Ooh.
I feel you.
I
I don't like upgrading technology either.
I'm going to lose my favorite program.
Oh, are they
It's
about to make it
obsolete.
obsolete?
It's obsolete. Yeah, I use Serif Page Plus, and I do photos in there. I do cartoons that I put on my Facebook page, with a little squirrel making a comment and stuff. Love that program, but it's obsolete. Nothing can read it if I upgrade.
Such a bummer. Like we talked about earlier, planned obsolescence is it's a real treat, isn't it? We don't have to
Yeah.
get back into that.
Well, gonna have to learn to manifest in a different way, right?
Yep. Hey,
We're seeing it. So
aren't we supposed to be able to like telepathically communicate at some point, or not have all the barriers?
exactly. And it's funny, I'm gonna think of my friend, the phone's gonna ring, but I have this friend, whenever I think of her, she phones. It's it's like, "Oops, I think I wiped that out because I don't want the phone to ring now."
That's
Now
cool though.
it's a big joke with us. Yeah, yeah.
That's cool though. That
Yes,
is, you hear those stories a lot. How people,
yes,
thinking of someone isn't just a random occurrence. Usually, there's a connection happening. In a on a quantum level or whatever that you can't really see, but that is more profound than just what you feel is an arbitrary. That was interesting. Just thought about that person, but yeah, we're more connected than we have a clue about. I'm pretty sure. But anyway,
yeah.
um, well, Pauline, I don't want to keep you any longer, but I just again I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share about the book one more time. Gateway to a New World. Get it on Amazon or go to paulineedward.com and find her other books. She's got a lot of other great books out there to check out. So, Pauline, until next time, be well, and thank you again so much for being here. Do you have any parting
And
thoughts?
I don't think you understand the amount of gratitude I feel for you young people, you doing the work that you're doing. I don't think you'll be able to understand it. Maybe one day you will, but it gives me hope.
You are more than welcome. Thank you.